the three-point shot is such a well-tuned ingredient in basketball that it virtually has no advantage at all compared to other shots. Since the 2002 season, the average number of three-point attempts per game for NBA teams has climbed from just under 15 to 35. And yet, over that same time span, the average three-point percentage league-wide virtually hasn't changed at all. Players and teams are attempting far more threes, but somehow, despite all the attention put on the long ball, NBA players haven't gotten much better at shooting them. When I saw these numbers for the first time, it blew my mind. How can a shot that's become so well executed at the NBA level, a shot that most players now possess within their bag, find its way into the basket just as often as it did decades ago? It's almost as if the people who introduced the three-point shot to the game of basketball knew exactly where to put the three-point line for it to be advantageous enough to attempt, but not too advantageous to create an imbalance in the game. But they didn't. When Abe Saperstein and Ray Meyer first introduced the three-point line to the American Basketball League in 1960, they didn't crunch any numbers to find out the right distance for it, they didn't have any data to point them to the right spot on the court, they literally just picked a spot. According to Saperstein's son, they just arbitrarily drew lines. Just two Hall of Fame coaches getting together and saying, "Where would we like to see the line?" The distance they chose for their game-changing shot? 25 feet. Now, what I wouldn't do to see the absolutely atrocious shooting numbers from 1960s basketball players attempting three-pointers nearly 2 feet further out than the current NBA three-point line. Needless to say, this shot served almost no purpose, so the league decided to move the shot in to just 23 feet. But as far as the evolution of the three-point line, that's about it. The only time the NBA ever adjusted it was for 3 seasons in the 90s, but that change didn't last long and it would eventually move back to where it stands today. The men that created the three-point line had no idea where the game would go over the next 60 years. They had never even seen a three-pointer in their life, and yet somehow they managed to narrow down the perfect distance for the shots almost immediately. But how? How did these two men know within inches of where the perfect distance for a three-pointer should be? Any closer to the basket and it would have broken the game. Those 3 seasons in the 90s is proof of that. But any further out, and the shot wouldn't even be worth taking. It's perfect, and the numbers back this up. Here's the average three-point percentage league-wide over the last 20 seasons. As we spoke about before, the NBA as a whole pretty much hasn't gotten any better or any worse at shooting the three ball. But you know what NBA players and teams have gotten better at? Two-pointers. Over the last 20 seasons, NBA players have gotten significantly better at shooting shots within the three-point arc. Now, at a certain point, if teams shoot two-pointers with enough efficiency, then the two-point shot will surpass the value of the three-point shot. And for the first time in 40 years, we have reached that threshold. See, the moment a team becomes a good three-point shooting team, everything begins to open up for them, including, ironically, every other shot besides the three-pointer. When an opposing team knows you can knock down threes, they are forced to play up on you even when you're 25 feet out. This creates space inside the three-point line. This creates more opportunities for off-ball movements, and the defense becomes so focused on stopping the three that they fail to stop or even recognize all other points of attack. What Daryl Morey and other analysts forgot to include in their future projections of the three-pointer was how other teams would react to it. Sure, in theory, if you can build a team that is extremely efficient from three, then you can just keep chucking up threes all game long, and you should end up on top. In theory, if a team gets more points per shot attempt from three-pointers than they do two-pointers, then there's virtually no point in attempting any shot outside of three-pointers and the occasional easy layup. But basketball's not a theory. Once other teams realize your team can shoot well from outside, they'll just make adjustments. They'll pick you up from 30 feet out, and their priority becomes stopping three-pointers at all costs. And this is precisely why the three-point shot is perfectly balanced. If a team isn't efficient at shooting threes, then three-pointers won't provide an unfair advantage. If a team is good at shooting threes, they end up getting easier shots from everywhere else on the court, which results in that team being less reliant on the three ball. Regardless of how you get there, it really all boils down to one thing: shot value. For the majority of the last 30 years, the value of an average NBA shot has virtually remained exactly the same. 1, as in 1 point per shot attempt. And throughout the last 3 decades, the average three-point attempt did yield teams a more productive result. 3-pointers on average being worth 1.03 points per shot attempt, and 2-pointers being worth 0.96 points per shot attempt. This is why many people believe
Enjoy it with the intuitive technology of a Lexus Hybrid.